Hello and welcome into the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Evan Moesta here alongside Joel Bryant. We are coming to you live from High School OT's studios here in Raleigh. Lots of exciting action across the state to get to. Let's first begin with the top 25 scores from around the state of North Carolina. Those look like this. Getting in number one overall, Grimsley all over East Forsyth tonight in a top 10 matchup. That is 48-21, Grimsley the winner there. As we move on here with our top 25 scoreboard, looking at number 2, West Charlotte. They're tangled up right now in the fourth quarter with South Point. Huff, a big win over out-of-state Highland Springs. Providence Day picking up a big win over Charlotte Catholic. Cardinal Gibbons got a big win tonight over Southern Durham. And then Myers Park continues to roll, Joel. They're undefeated, 45-7. We take a look at some other top games from around the state of North Carolina as we roll on here. Number 14, Southeast Raleigh, 52-7 over East Wake. Cleveland, you just saw that in the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. They got a 52-28 win. They really pulled away late in what was a very close game with Northern Nash. They win 52-28. Mooresville also put up 52. It was a 52-13 win over A.L. Brown. Watauga running away with a big win over Mount Airy, 61-7. Independence, 35-34 over Charlotte Christian. And Richmond losing to Rollsville tonight in a top 25 matchup. We continue. Let's bring up some more scores from around the state. Number 22, Jordan, all over Vance County tonight, 52-0. 52 is a popular number tonight amongst teams in the top 25. Tarboro beating Havelock 35-7. That avenges a loss from a season ago to the Rams. And then Brevard defeats Irwin tonight, 37-14. Some other scores that we were going to get around to. Hoggard, a big win tonight, 38-14. The Vikings remain unbeaten. They have had some really impressive victories so far this season, Joel, and we welcome in the head coach of the Hoggard Vikings, Craig Underwood, here to the High School OT postgame show. Coach Underwood, a big win tonight, but more importantly, the 100th win of your career. I know you don't love those accolades and all that. You're just happy that your guys came away with a big win tonight, but you've really tested them in this non-conference slate, and they've responded really well. What is it about this team where they've been able to get off on the right foot so easily?
Well, there hasn't been nothing easy about it. I'll say that. But they're a hardworking group. They love playing ball together. That was evident when we started our off-season training, and a lot of them were underclassmen last year, and you could just tell. I mean, they love playing the game, and that's a lot of fun to coach. So super proud of our guys. Clayton's a great team, and we were able to get off to a fast start tonight. I thought that was crucial. And the guys just, they kept the pedal down and really just pleased. I mean, we executed on offense. We were efficient on the ground and threw the ball well tonight. Defensively, though, just really tone setting. Thought we played a good physical game. We responded well when they made some plays. They've got some great players, and thought our guys responded well. As they have all season. These first 3 games have been really tough. We've faced some really good teams and really good coaching staffs. And then the special team side of things too tonight was big. We won some field position there. So a full team win as these 3 have been. And I give a credit to just the way our players work and this coaching staff. These guys they dive all into the preparation. It's awesome.
You mentioned the defense. That's such a limited offense over there at Clayton. They have a really good quarterback who's going to NC State as a receiver, lots of weapons he has. So what exactly was the approach, and how did you kind of corral that offense? Because holding them to 14 points is pretty impressive.
Again, it was just team defense. It's everybody, it wasn't about any individual. It was about all of our guys doing their job, responsibility football. Being accountable, and we knew we needed to improve on tackling. We struggled tackling some last week, and it was a big point of emphasis. And the guys just responded well. They showed up to Monday morning's practice ready to work and really high energy just all week. And I thought the defense set the tone all week, and I thought they set the tone tonight. as proud as I am of our offensive production, I thought our defense just really got the ball rolling for us. In early
And for you on that
safety,
personal note, that 100th win, what's that feel like, first of all? And then was the team kind of, were they expecting that for a while? Did they know that was coming and they want to kind of get it for you?
I mean, nah, we don't really advertise those kinds of things. So, I mean, it was, I'm just super proud. I mean, Hoggard, it's a really special place to work and to coach, and the community here is so supportive, and just the guys. I mean, I just looked at a couple of coaches in the office a minute ago. I'm like, y'all, you guys, you've been with me for all 100 of them. And so it's their wins, and just as a group, we've done it together. It's pretty awesome. And the kids were so excited. That was a humbling moment. So pretty cool.
What did you hope to learn from your team when you helped put together this non-conference schedule? And now looking through the first 3 weeks, have you learned what you wanted to learn about this team, or what have they kind of presented
I think it's are you tough? Do you love playing football? Because you're going to be in hard games. And we want you to learn to love playing hard games and love being in battles. And our guys have just responded extremely well. So really, really, really proud of where we are. We got another tough one next week. Panther Creek, another really good team that we're heading up the road. Got to handle a road trip, and one at a time. So we're going to enjoy this one tonight, and then it's on to the next one.
Well, congratulations on the win tonight, Coach. That is the head coach of the Hoggard Vikings, Craig Underwood, who joins us. The Vikings are now 3-0 following a big win over Clayton. We move on here on the High School OT post-game show. As we mentioned, the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. It was Cleveland hosting Northern Nash, the 15th ranked Rams, who had not lost a regular season game in their last 54 matches. They extend that streak to 55 tonight. Wow. With a 52-28 win over the Knights. These are two teams that do not lose many games in the regular season, as we welcome in J. Mike Blake, who had the call of that one. J. Mike, it felt like in that third quarter, Cleveland was able to shake off a late touchdown in the second quarter, and they just mashed their foot on the gas and ran the rest of the way.
Yeah, if you look at the yards between these two teams, Cleveland, 452 yards of offense. Northern Nash just shy of 200 yards, 197. So this is like everything points to Cleveland kind of running away with this, but Northern Nash just had, credit to them. Again, this is a program that's not used to losing in the regular season, only one regular season loss in the last 3 years. They had some weird touchdowns to kind of stay in this. They're down 17-0 in the first half. They get a fumble inside Cleveland territory. They score on a 4th and 10 and end around with about 1:30 or so left until halftime. And then Cleveland looks like they're going to set up a long field goal for the last play of the first half. The ball, I believe, looking at the replay on our Game of the Week, it looks like it hits the back of a Cleveland offensive lineman, goes sky high into the air. It's fielded out of the air by a Northern Nash player, Jamarzio Williams, and he just starts running towards this sideline, cuts back, and as we know from any kick six, the field goal unit that's on the field is not necessarily ready to cover a return. So he ran it back 85 yards, and you're looking at it like in the last 90 seconds, it's now a 3-point game after Cleveland controlling that whole second quarter. So it felt like just a matter of time before Cleveland kind of played a little bit cleaner game. They also gave up a fumble return for 65 yards that cut the lead back again. So it just seemed like, okay, when Cleveland kind of gets it all, like Cleveland can just no turnovers, no weird touchdowns by Northern Nash, they'll have this thing in the bag, and they did. So credit Northern Nash for sticking around. All their touchdowns tonight were kind of interesting, right? Fumble return, kick six, 4th down play, and then another was like a 3rd and 20-something where all of a sudden the ball drops between two Cleveland defenders and Northern Nash guys walking into the end zone. I think Cleveland, though, get 28 points does not show you how good the defense is, because the defense was not on the field for 2 of those. That defense, even without Cameron Melvin tonight, was lights out. The front 7 was really, really good, and I think that's something that a lot of the Cleveland success over the last decade, sometimes they've had defenses that give up, just trying to give up just a little bit less points than what their offense can score. This is the team that doesn't need to get in a shootout with you because the defense is going to hold you in check. I think that's my big takeaway from watching Cleveland tonight, seeing what's different. They didn't have these like 80-yard touchdowns, 60-yard touchdowns, offensive plays, but they got those 8-yard, 12-yard, 15-yard gashes on offense, and they were really good in the red zone. They got stopped earlier, set up for a field goal, but after that, they were lights out.
Cleveland continues this run. 55 regular season games in a row. As you mentioned during the broadcast, these two teams coming into tonight had only lost one regular season game in the last 3 years.
Combined, yeah.
Combined. I mean, Cleveland, how are they able to replace all of these key pieces year in and year out? They lose over 2,000 yards in receiving, over 3,500 yards in passing, and it felt like tonight their ground game was really solid. They were able to complete passes when they needed to, and their new quarterback, Owen Holbert, he's so sound.
Yeah. Owen Holbert, I did talk to him after the game. You'll be able to see that interview on HighSchoolOT later tonight. He talked about like, hey, like we would just prepare so well. He knew where he was going with the ball. He knew like the game planning for Cleveland hasn't changed, right? This is the coaching staff that's been together for a while. They know how to win games. They know how to prepare for opponents. He was just saying, like, we knew what we had to do because they were going to line up this way. Their holes were going to be here. We knew all that going in, and we just had to execute. And when they're in the red zone, they have so many ways they can hurt you. Tight end, Wyatt Caldwell, 2 touchdown catches tonight in the red zone. 2 running backs that had really good games. They had if Porter Bennett with about 100 yards of total offense. And then on the ground, Caleb Farrell, who didn't play much in the second half. I didn't see him get injured or anything, but he didn't play as much second half. He did get over 100 yards on the ground. And again, not the 50-yard play, but the 11-yard run, 8-yard run, 7-yard run, which is honestly its own side of dominance and its own sign that maybe that Cleveland offensive line is a little underappreciated. And you can have some losses in the skill position players, especially when you're as good and the talent pipeline is as good as it is right here in Cleveland. If your offensive line is going to be that good year in, year out. And tonight they wore down Northern Nash. Now, Northern Nash is a smaller school. They've got guys playing both ways, and that'll happen sometimes. But, again, I was really impressed with – I think when you think of Cleveland, you think of the skill position players and the shootout games, right? Tonight, to me, it was the red zone execution, the offensive line moving the chains, and the defensive front seven playing so soundly. And I do give credit to the secondary. They didn't allow many passing yards at all. But I thought the front seven really took away anything Northern Nash could do on the ground, which forced them into long passing downs.
So Northern Nash came in, number 4 in the 6A
Yes.
rankings? My own rankings, can't remember what they are.
Yep, they're 4.
They came in number 4. Your general impression on them, obviously Cleveland's a different kind of program in 7A. Do you think that number 4 spot is legitimate for them, or do you think they might be higher or lower than that?
It is. I think it's probably just something about 6A. I mean, 6A is that new 3A basically, and I think it's going to be wide open. So I've seen Terry Sanford, 71st, and now Northern Nash. Those are 3 teams that you have to watch for in the 6A East. I think Northern Nash does not have the home run hitter on offense. They're still sound on defense. And I think they could still finish this year 9-1, easily, looking at their schedule, knowing their conference. However, to me, it's a little less explosive than last year's team with Barry and Strickland. And tonight's game, I think, could be something that really, really helps them going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of weeks, if we saw Northern Nash again, you say, is that the same team? Because that's a good coaching staff, right? Andrew Ferris and what he's built with the Knights. They're going into a bye week next week. I guarantee they're going to have a lot of stuff to say, you know what? Now we can show you this is how we should do things. They've already beaten J.H. Rose. That's another team that you always had to think of in the 6A East. But I think tonight they needed this game. It's nice to go undefeated in the regular season, but I think they needed this game to figure out what they have on offense. Their defense is going to be really good at 6A. I think their defense can contend with some of those other teams, but they don't have the running backs of 71st, for instance. They don't have the Jacob Moore playmaking ability at quarterback like Terry Sanford. So, I mean, I think they'll probably move down a little bit next week in Joel's power rankings for 6A. But at the same time, how far down? because they can easily go 9-1, like run the table the rest of the way. And then we're still talking about them getting a first round bye in the playoffs and making another big run.
Well, that is J. Mike Blake. He had the call tonight of Cleveland's 52-28 win over Northern Nash on the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. Let's take a look. Thanks, J. Mike. Let's take a look at some scores from around the 919 area code, including that game that J. Mike obviously had from Cleveland. Leesville Road, a huge win. The Pride, they continue to roll tonight. They get a 50-3 win over Heritage. And Middle Creek and Garner, they tangle. That's a long-time Wake County battle. You can see that full highlights on WRL's Football Friday tonight. It's to the Trojans, Joel, 41-17. Garner, a big win over Middle Creek. Apex Friendship defeating Southern Lee tonight, 40-21. Corinth Holders picking up a 31-14 win over South Garner. High School OT's Jonas Pope IV was there. He will join us in just a little bit. Right now, at last update, we had Nightdale over Panther Creek, 14-3. If you have that final score, you can head over to HighSchoolOT.com, report that score, and we will add it to the Talk It Out NC scoreboard. Hillside picking up a win over Dudley, a big win for the Hornets, 22-18. Princeton defeating Seaforth, 50-34. Fuquay Varina beating Triton, 36-22. Enloe and Green Level battled, and it was 41-26. Enloe in that one. A thriller out at Holly Springs as the Golden Hawks defeat Apex 27-21. Franklinton defeating South Granville 26-14. And then Green Hope. How about the Falcons, Joel?
Yeah.
31-28 over Athens Drive. Coach Mitch Johnson and Green Hope
still a young team for them.
They are. They remain undefeated with a big win tonight. We had Coach Craig Underwood from Hoggard on earlier in the show to talk about Hoggard's big win over Clayton. We're now going to welcome in Tim Howard to the broadcast. Tim, a common theme here in the early part of this season has been lengthy losing streaks across the state have been falling. Mm-hmm. And did you catch one tonight with South Brunswick?
I did. Yeah. South Brunswick, coming up with a late touchdown. I'm going to say it was an exciting game. I'm not going to say it was the greatest football game I've ever seen, but it was an exciting game against Trask. The first half, just kind of throw away everything, really, if you're either team. You've got to there were probably more penalty yards than there were total yards. So the first half kind of throw away if you're both coaches. But the second half, if things got really interesting, kind of back and forth. South Brunswick stopped a 2-point conversion to stay up one kind of late in the game and it looked like they were going to go in and score. They fumbled on the 11-yard line. Trask went in, drove 89 yards, I think in 6 plays, got a touchdown, and made the 2-point conversion. So they're up 22-15 with 1:44 to go. And you're thinking, here we go again. If we're South Brunswick, we had the lead. We were going in to score. We fumbled. Now we're down by 7 points. But to their credit, 2 plays into the next drive, Jaden Daniels finds a really good sophomore receiver, Edward Young, for a 57-yard touchdown. So now you're down 1. It's decision time, right? If you're South Brunswick, you're down 1 point. You've got a kicker. Do you kick the extra point or do you go for the 2 points and hopefully the win? They rolled the dice, went for 2. It was kind of a broken play on a rollout to the right, but Jaden Daniels was able to find his running back in the back of the end zone for the 2-point conversion to put them up 23-22, 1:07 left, and then there was a sack fumble to end the game. And man, you would have thought South Brunswick just won the Super Bowl with how they were celebrating after that victory, and rightfully so. I mean, those kids have continued to work hard, and so it's great to see them snap that 19-game losing streak. And look, they're not in what was formerly the Mid-Eastern Conference anymore, now the Carolina Coast Conference. They've moved into the Southeastern Conference with some winnable games, I think. So, this is the first win of the year. I think there could be a few more for South Brunswick on their schedule.
No wonder they want to have Jaden Daniels on their team.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Tim, this is 4 straight weeks dating back to the final week of last year's regular season that the longest losing streak in the state had been snapped. Yep. 4 did it back the final week of 2024. This year, Garinger started the season with it.
West Caldwell
West
last week.
Caldwell, yep. Cedar Ridge did it last week. Now South Brunswick this week. What type of confidence does that give that locker room there to so early in the season see that scoreboard hit 0 and know that they won?
Yeah, I asked Coach Yao the same thing after the game. I said, especially because it looked like you were going to win the game with about 2 minutes to go. Then you get behind, and at that point, it's almost like here we go again type situation. So for them to find a way at the very end to win the game, he said he thinks is going to bring a lot of confidence to this team. And again, we talked about the conference and not having to go up against teams that are, twice your size in enrollment. He thinks is going to be a big thing. He understands that, Whiteville, South Columbus are still there and are still going to be tough games for them to win, but he likes their chances to compete a little bit more in that conference. And now they know if they're in a game near the end, in the final 3 minutes, 2 minutes, they know now that they can find a way to win. Whereas in years past, when they fell behind with 2 minutes to go, it was almost just like, well, here we go again. We played well, but we just couldn't find a way to win. He's hoping that this one kind of fuels now that, as he said, the train's kind of going now. The train has started on the tracks. Can we just keep that momentum going now and not come to a stop?
Hey, Tim, quick before you go, your impressions of Hoggard's win tonight over Clayton, 38-14. We were talking about this earlier today, how you were the only one kind of going into that South Brunswick game. Just what are your thoughts from that final score from afar?
Looks like we may have lost.
If we lost him.
Yeah, we may have lost him. Oh, there we go. He's back.
Oh, okay.
Thoughts on the Hoggard final
I didn't
score?
hear your question. Sorry.
Thoughts on the Hoggard final score, just on the surface, seeing it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I was looking as I was watching my game, and when I saw them jump out to that big lead, I said, "Wow, this is quite impressive what they're doing." It looked like their defense played outstanding again, of course, I don't cover the entire state, so I don't know, on the spectrum how good of a quarterback Matthew Boring is compared to, some of the other great quarterbacks in the state. I mean, obviously, Faison Brandon is the best in the nation, arguably. So, I don't know that you could put him on that spectrum, but Matthew Boring, to me, has been playing lights out ever since he took his first snap at Hoggard. And the fact that he's only a junior and is now leading, I think one of the best teams in the 8A East. I don't know that he's quite getting the attention on a state level scale that maybe he deserves. And, maybe with wins like this, they keep piling up. Maybe his name starts to come in conversation of, a top 5 quarterback in the state.
I think we can both agree Matthew Boring's pretty dang good statewide.
Yeah, he's the best quarterback in the days.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you for joining us, Tim.
Absolutely. You guys have a great night. Keep doing the great work. Really love what you guys do.
That is Tim Hauer from Coastal Preps joining us here. South Brunswick getting a big win tonight over Trask. From the coast all the way out to Alexander Central. And that is where Aikman Chambers was to watch the Cougars pick up a big victory tonight. Aikman, thanks for joining us. A big night for Alexander Central.
Congratulations, Coach Chris Marshall. First career win tonight for the Alexander Central Cougars. And let me tell you, boys, when you can rack up right at 375 yards on the ground in rushing offense, that's the way you play wing T Alexander Central style football. Sawyer Chapman Mays tonight was outstanding. 20 carries, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Jaquise Parks on just 7 carries, 174 yards and 2 touchdowns, and one of those being an 86-yard run in the first quarter. It was Cougars on the ground all night long in Taylorsville.
So obviously it's kind of a tough start for Alexander Central the first couple of weeks. They got blown out by New and Conover and then Hickory. Did you kind of sense just kind of an elation from the team after the game when they just kind of got that first win off their belt?
Absolutely. Players were so happy, celebrating, high-fiving each other. You could tell coming off of that tough loss the way it was last week at Hickory, this one meant a lot to this group over at Alexander Central. Also want to shout out Jacob Hubbard, the quarterback for Alexander Central. 6 of 6 passing, nothing special as far as numbers, 79 yards and a touchdown. If you remember the Paul Johnson Georgia Tech days when they'd run for 375 yards, and the quarterback would hardly attempt any passes but would get a touchdown pass in there. He was sharp when called upon through the air tonight. And then big Caleb Jenright, the defensive tackle, had a interception off of a Bryce Peters screen pass tonight. The elation on the big D tackle when he got the dream of the interception tonight, that young man was so happy celebrating on the sideline. Wanted to keep the ball, but, Ashe County brings the football, so he had to give that one back. But all in all, it was a perfect night for the Cougars for the most part.
And last question for you, Aikman. So obviously it's a nice night for Alexander Central tonight, but we saw what Watauga did in that new Northwestern 6A, 7A conference. We've seen what Freedom has done so far. Does this change your perspective on how Alexander Central can compete in this conference, or are you still kind of thinking that they might be kind of a middle or lower team in the pack here?
Yeah, I mean, right now, maybe third. It's just with what Watauga did tonight. Rumors of Watauga's, step back or Watauga's, I don't want to say demise because I feel like that's too harsh, but rumors that they would be down, I don't think we need to worry about that after the way they handled a very talented Mount Airy team tonight. And also, you and I talked about this, Joel. If there was any team we felt like that could step up, Freedom was one of those teams we looked at just with Coach J.K. Atkins. And with what they're doing early on, I cannot wait for that first Northwestern 6A, 7A conference game in a few weeks when Freedom takes on Watauga. That is going to be must-see action.
Well, that is Aikman Chambers. He was out in Taylorsville tonight as Alexander Central picked up a big win over Ashe County. Thanks for joining us here, Aikman.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick break here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. When we come back, Jeff Link and David Jones from Scoreboard Radio. Clay Best, he was at the big Garner Middle Creek game, and Jonathan Bim will check in. You're watching the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC.
Raising kids is a roller coaster. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, but most times you wonder how your kid turned out so well. That's how. You did the hard work, made the right decisions, like talking about alcohol before it could be a problem. Go to talkitoutnc.org. Get resources on how to talk about underage drinking. So Mom, Dad, keep up the good work. It's worth it. Talk early. Talk often. Talk It Out NC.
Aikman Chambers just joined us. He had the recap of Alexander Central and Ashe County. That story is up now on HighSchoolOT.com. We take a quick look at our Talk It Out NC statewide scoreboard from the 828 area code. Brevard picking up a big win tonight over Irwin. Irwin had an early lead at the break, and then the Blue Devils pulled away there. Hickory defeating Bunker Hill tonight 49-0. The Red Tornadoes, after dropping a week 1 game, have come out with a vengeance over the last 2 weeks. Freedom, as Joel had mentioned to Aikman, their offense continues to cook, 61+ points for a second straight week. Jam Robinson gets a win over AC Reynolds. Maiden defeating North Lincoln. Kings Mountain, a close one there, 34-29 over Bandies. Still looking for a final score from Hendersonville and North Henderson. If you have that, report it to highschoolot.com and we will get it up on the Talk It Out NC scoreboard. Mountain Heritage, a 50-19 win over Robbinsville this evening. In overtime, Ambassador Christian and the Asheville School were all knotted up 33-33. Murphy was up 42-6 on East Surrey. That game's gone final. East Rutherford, 84 points tonight, an 84-8 win over CPLA. Not the most points scored in the state tonight. We'll get to that. Not the most points in the state tonight, and not the biggest margin of victory either. Mitchell, 38-7 over Andrews as well. And we welcome in Jeff Link and David Jones from Scoreboard Radio. Guys, some impressive final scores across the state. And would you add the game that you guys were at as well, taking in Drawn and East Burke tonight?
Well, before we get to that, I do have that Hendersonville North Henderson score for you. Hendersonville, the Bearcats win 32-27 over North Henderson tonight.
Awesome. That's what we need. That's going up right now on the scoreboard.
Hey,
We aim to please.
I just add that into my paycheck at the end of the I'll start. We had Wilkes Central and Drone 41-0 Wilkes Central over Drone tonight. To me, I don't think it was a surprise. Wilkes Central comes in 2-0, a much improved football team. They've now surpassed last season's win total. They were 2-8 last year. They go to 3-0 this year. Drone's it's a rebuilding year. What can you say? Chris Powell, the third coach or the third tenured coach there. There's been 2 coaches in school history over at Drone, I'm sorry, there has been 3. I'm sorry, there's been 3 coaches, and he's got the most wins. But this was going to be a tough year for them. They lost a lot. And guys, I said this earlier tonight in our broadcast, and I want to get your opinion on this because you guys from statewide see things. But we've seen an increase in numbers and participation across the state the last couple of years, and then it's dropped this year. I'm seeing a lot of schools in the Catawba Valley saying, well, our numbers are low and we're going to drop the JV team. Drone announced this week they were wanting to have a JV team for the conference schedule. They've decided to drop that. This is kind of that last year of the COVID babies, if you will, that when they were in middle school around here, I don't know how it was across the state, but at least in our area, these kids who are now seniors missed 2 years of middle school football because they canceled 2 years. And so the numbers have dropped. And I think some schools are able to overcome that. But I think a school like Drone, you just see they don't have a lot of seniors. They have some quality senior leadership.
600 and change kids.
600 kids. And so you're having to pull up a bunch of sophomores and juniors. And we saw a lot of sophomores tonight that contributed for Wilkes Central as well, too. So I think that's a theme across the state. I think this is kind of our last year. If we get through this year, maybe we start getting past that COVID and those kids who were in 6th, 7th, 8th grade have now graduated out. We're kind of going to get some true numbers. But I think that's hurting a lot of the teams that we're seeing around here.
Yeah, I did point that out to Joel. I was like, there's a lot of teams that feels like in your area in the Catawba Valley that we are talking about.
That's right off the Patton thing last year where Patton dropped varsity.
Yeah, Patton had it. East Burke had a rough go of things. You have some of these teams like West Caldwell's and Ford's who are constantly, having to bounce back from winless seasons or lengthy losing streaks. And so, that's one of those things where obviously it comes in waves I think we've seen across the state that there's been an overall there's been some growing pains, I guess, of just getting back into losing those couple of years of development and just interest in the sport and getting out there and just kind of having that push and that drive to be able to want to play high school athletics.
Yeah, I mean, you take those 2 years. Yeah, you take those 2 years away.
Yeah,
and that habit of doing it, year round and getting ready for the fall every year, that habit, when you break it, that's hard to establish back.
Yeah.
So I think these guys are close to the answer here, and hopefully it's something that is just kind of a blip in time, right? Hopefully it's something that we see reverse. It's very interesting though. We're gonna have to keep monitoring that. Guys, my question for you though, the thing with Drawn is they kind of benefited from being a bigger school in 1A or over the past realignment, and now they're 3A. I know that we know this is going to be kind of a rebuilding year for them, but long term, over the next 4 years, can you see this team rebuilding and getting back into deep playoff contention at the 3A level?
Chris Powell's a good coach. He played high school football at Freedom. He played college football at Western Carolina. Chris Powell hasn't forgot how to coach football. What happened back in 2022 and 23, Drone had an elite class of talent. And Eli Tillery, a quarterback who was on NC State's football roster before transferring out, Nigel Dula, college-level running back, Luke Rector, Jacob Mull, Radaball, Pinkerton.
Blackwood,
they had college-level football players at a 1A school, and they really rode that. They ran into a buzzsaw of Mount Airy, but Coach Powell hasn't forgotten how to coach. He's got a good staff. Jeff has talked about before in Valdez, that community loves that school, and they've got buy-in there. So I don't think Chris Powell's job is in any sort of turmoil. He did get married this year. He did lose his father in a traffic accident. So, he has certainly not mentioned anything to us about going anywhere, but he's a good coach. It's just those numbers are so difficult. We referenced that during our game tonight is when they moved down to 1A, they excelled. And now they still got the same numbers, but with the refiguring of the classifications, they're playing some tougher teams. But West Caldwell is in that conference. Patton is in that conference. East Burke is in that conference. The final score tonight, 41-0. Mason Harris with 3 rushing touchdowns. Multiple quarterbacks for Chuck Cannon's guys. Trey Lowe with a 58-yard touchdown run. But Yeah. Most Central had 3 sophomores on the defensive line. The total yardage was probably 400 and change to around 50 for Drone. So they're going to take it on the chin this year. They'll gain a lot of experience. They have a lot of youngsters. I wouldn't be surprised if Drone's not competitive in some of those conference games, and then they ratchet things back up again, maybe the following year. But this year's going to be tough.
Yeah. That is Jeff Lincoln, David Jones from Scoreboard Radio. Where can we catch you guys next week?
Right now, we're kind of getting to the point of our season where we got it set, but we may flex out. But right now, at least on paper, we're looking like we'll be back with South Caldwell, and North Gaston will come to town. North Gaston, I believe, was on a bye this week. South Caldwell goes up to Tuscola and loses tonight 42-6. And you're worried right now if you're a South Caldwell fan, are the wheels going to fall off? You win week 1 over West Caldwell, and David and I both said they looked very polished after week 1, and then High Brighton embarrassed them last week. And just living in that community, knowing some of the kids, that's my biggest concern is how can Casey Justice keep the wheels together and say, okay, guys, we got one more tune-up game before we get into our bye week, and then before we get to the Northwestern 3A, 4A conference. It used to be the 3A, 4A, the 6A, 7A conference. But the question you asked Aikman just a few minutes ago, it's Freedom and it's Watauga in that conference, and somebody else is going to have to finish in that conference. Will it be McDowell? St. Stephen's has improved. They gave High Brighton a good run the first half tonight. So I don't know. South Caldwell still has a lot to play for, but you just worry, can they hold that locker room together after what was not a shocking loss tonight, but certainly eye-opening that they lost by the margin that they did against the Tuscola team that, quite frankly, just wasn't that good.
Well, as always, we appreciate you guys for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Have a good one, guys.
We move on here on the High School OT post-game show, taking a quick look at the 910 area of the state and some final scores from there. Terry Sanford up on E.E. Smith, 71st shuts out Pine Forest. Jack Britt follows the theme of some big scoring totals out in Cumberland County. They defeat Cape Fear 47-13. East Duplin just narrowly getting past Richlands 14-7.
Overtime.
That was a thriller there. Scotland over Ashley 27-19. St. Paul shuts out Red Springs. That game had to end early. It was a little chippy, and there were some injuries in that one. Southern Nash, a thriller over James Keenan. That was 44-42. Northside Jacksonville all over Topsail tonight, 42-6. Still, Lee County shutting out Overhill's a low-scoring affair in that one, 9-0 for the Yellow Jackets. Pinecrest escapes Davie County, 13-10. We're going to bring on Jonathan Bim next and hear from him about how that one's going. Harnett Central defeating Smithfield Selma 30-28 tonight, and then North Duplin Spring Creek. Still looking for a final score there. If you have it, submit it to highschoolot.com. And we will get it up on the Talk It Out NC scoreboard. As I mentioned, Jonathan Bim, All Things Moore County, joining us now here on the High School OT postgame show. Jonathan, Pinecrest, a big win, a much-needed win for the Patriots, 13-10 over Davie County. How big of a win is that for this team?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty big. I think this team is very young. They had a lot of guys that were coming into new positions. Last week's 21-16 win over Union Pines was, it was a good win. It showed some grit from the guys, huge defensive plays coming down the stretch, but the offense still needed to get some things together. Chris Najan with 2 rushing touchdowns, so he had the game winner there in the fourth quarter, which was very limited on updates from that game. But it was Pinecrest that really just needed to keep getting a couple wins. Obviously, it's a long trip all the way to Moxville from Southern Pines, so they're happy to be 2-1 right now, especially considering how things were after the opener. There's a lot of murmurs about what the heck's going on with Pinecrest, but that was a really good Cleveland team they faced. So right. I think just as they continue to get more experience, more wins, however they can come, I think that's a good thing for Pinecrest going forward. As I think, like me and Joel talked in the preseason, I think they're a top 3 team in the Sandhills or in the Mid-South. I gotta get my conferences all straightened out, but the Mid-South Conference, I think they're a top 3 team. I think if they can, so right now, we've seen Richmond take a loss at Hoggard and their loss to Rollsville, which are very good teams. So we'll see how Richmond pans out, but I think Jack Britt scoring 47 points tonight. So that's a lot. I'd say it's a 3-dog fight right now.
Hey, so I know the Union Pines looks impressive tonight against Eastern Randolph, but I was curious about your impressions of Eastern Randolph because they're a team in 3A that's going to be a factor. Before we get into Union Pines, just tell me about your impressions of them.
I would say it was hard to gauge because Union Pines is a bigger team than they would see at a 3A level. But I was really impressed. Kobe Walker, huge. I saw stats. I knew he was going to be a bruiser, power back, and he also played some linebacker. I think on Union Pines' first drive, he got hurt on a tackle and didn't really, after he was a bruiser, really ran the ball well in that first drive. After that, he was sort of hampered a little bit. I see there's really everything that they need to be a really good 3A team, really big offensive line. Depth was really a concern in this game, but obviously when they go up against teams that have 45 players just like they do, it'll be the same kind of war of attrition. But tonight, Union Pines just had a little bit more depth. I think Union Pines was held Eastern Randolph to 29 rushing yards, which after that first drive, I would have said you were crazy if you had told me that. But the way that Union Pines defense really settled in, they got a late touchdown in the first half after a Union Pines miscue. But I think this is a really good Eastern Randolph team. I think in that Four Rivers Conference, I think they're going to be top 2 or 3 team. They could easily contend for the title.
Gotcha. So for Union Pines, we've been learning that this Carolina Pines 6A conference is kind of chaotic.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Last week, Overhills beat Harris Central. We weren't really expecting that. So Harris Central were kind of like, what's going on with them? But this week, Lee County, which is in the Carolina Pines, beats Overhills, shuts them out.
I know.
Where do you see Union Pines fitting into this conference now that we're 3 weeks in? They played Pinecrest close. They have 2 other wins. Do you see them potentially coming out on top of this conference?
I think it's open. It's very. I think when we've talked in the preseason, I said, like we said, the Harnett Central, Lee County, those are the 2 teams we sort of favored. I think Union Pines can work its way in. I think it's their physicality the last 2 weeks, especially physicality tonight, even past the whistle. I mean, there was some stuff that got a little chippy, but the way, you saw pancake blocks, and just guys getting thrown around just manhandled by the Union Pines defense. They've got a really good linebacker group, Josiah Sandler, Elijah Clayton, Dylan Benedict. Those guys are really bruisers. So I think that defense comes in every week, well prepared. They have their keys. The whole Pinecrest at 21 points last week was really impressive to me. I thought that could be one of those games that could get out of hand. Eastern Randolph was limited to 7. I think that defense is really going to carry them a good ways. And the offense is starting to come around. We said the first couple of weeks the offense needed to settle in, figure out who's going to do what. They've got a really good running back group. They've got a quarterback in Ian Hicks who threw for 3 touchdowns and rushed for 55 yards today. I think they've got all the things figured out offensively, and now it's just sort of gaining confidence before they take on the Lee County, Harnett Central, and those guys.
Well, that is Jonathan Bim from the Pilot joining us here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Thanks, Jonathan.
Appreciate it, guys.
We're going to welcome in Clay Best now. He was at a big a longtime Wake County rivalry game, Garner Middle Creek, especially if you were tapped into Wake County football in the 2010s. This was a sellout, can't miss. You saw plenty of them, Clay.
Yeah, it's fitting for a guy like Clay to cover.
Exactly. The Trojans coming away with this big win tonight. How are they able to really create separation in this one from the Mustangs?
Just a night where Garner just kind of put their foot on the throat early, did a little bit of everything. There was some of the Pat did Garner big play offense, as well as 3 drives that covered 80 or more yards and 7 or more plays. Just 21-0 lead for Garner pretty early in the second quarter. Middle Creek kind of got back in it a little bit with a big interception return for a touchdown. But every time you thought Middle Creek, which is a team's coming off 2 30-point wins, was going to kind of make a move to get back in this, Garner said no, and did kind of exactly what it needed to do to keep this a multiple score game.
Coach Duron Donald at Garner, this has been a little bit of a project for him over the last couple of years to bring the Trojans back to some of the levels that they've been at over the last few decades. He's getting to that point slowly now where they are getting these signature wins and these key wins. They were competitive for a while in week 1 against Millbrook, who's a top 10 team. Where do you see this ascension for this Garner program going in the next year or so? And obviously you've watched a lot of Garner football over the years. What is kind of the culture and the pulse of this program right now under Coach Donald?
So this is a different Garner team, in a not a good or a bad way, but a unique way. In that they had 547 yards of offense tonight, 300 rushing, 247 passing. They made multiple plays, one-on-one downfield, where the ball was in the right spot for a Middle Creek receiver to make a play, and guys like Ja'Cory Covington and Maddox McDowell made one-on-one, like, shutdown corner breakup of pass plays, to keep the Mustangs kind of out of the game. Garner, this Garner team is bigger than they were last year. They are still not the old school physically imposing Garner offensive, defensive line and linebacking unit that we remember from those late 90s, 20s. Those people that are as old as I am might remember, but they are well coached. They know what to do when they need to do it. Second half, there was a lot of, hey, let's run counter, let's run trap, let's milk this clock and do what we need to do to make sure a talented Middle Creek football team that has good size, good looking players, talented players, to not really get back in this game. When you start looking at, you see this 7A Greater News Conference that Garner is in, and who else is in 7A, just in the Triangle area. And Garner's going to be a big problem for somebody in November if they're not a team that is. I mean, you look at this Greater News and you see you got Southeast Raleigh, Clayton, Cleveland, South Garner, and Garner all have been pretty stinking impressive from what I've seen story and score wise. And what's going to happen? Somebody's going to get left out of the playoffs. I don't have this new format completely figured out, but that's 5 teams. I don't. Do they all get in? I
think they'll all
probably
get in.
not.
Yeah,
they would all get in. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
so
we're getting 48 teams in the playoffs now per classification.
Yeah.
So they got
Okay,
a pretty good shot,
so
I'm curious, Clay. Before we go here, I'm curious about Middle Creek. This 6A classification, we can't figure out. Like we have no idea what's going on. These teams are
There's a lot of parity.
Yeah, a lot of parity. Disappointing losses every week. I think the only team that's really on skirmish right now is Terry Sanford that can at the top group. Do you think this Middle Creek team can work out whatever issues they had tonight and compete in that 6A classification seriously, because it's so open right now?
I think so. I mean, Middle Creek made plays, and you can see where they could make more plays, but Garner it was Garner's night, and they wouldn't let him do it. Middle Creek kept digging. I mean, they forced 2 fumbles inside of the 5-yard line that were going to be Garner scores. And so I to me, it's kind of, in a way, it's a different Middle Creek, and there are more schools around than there were in those 2010s, which we referenced before, but they will be a factor because like I say, there's a lot of 6'3", 6'2" guys in the backfield, at receiver, linebackers, defensive backs. They have an incredible kicker, which could really make a difference when you talk about, hey, like you talk about 6A, if it's so level, if you've got a guy like Ben Ledoux, who just had some incredible punts tonight and great distance on kickoffs. That's the kind of thing that can make a difference. Again, it wasn't a night where Middle Creek was bad. It was Garner just had an answer for everything that they tried to do.
Well, again, that is Clay Best. He was out at Garner for the Trojans' big win over Middle Creek tonight. You can see his story up on HighSchoolOT.com. Thanks for joining us, Clay.
Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
We're going to move down and bring on James Moore from the Fayetteville Observer. He joins us here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. There were some big scoring numbers tonight in Cumberland County.
Well, the game he was at, the Jack Britt score.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, a huge margin there. Joel.
Yeah, James. So the Jack Britt game, they blow out Cape Fear. We thought it would be kind of close. It was close to start, but Jack Britt pulls away with a big victory. How'd they do it?
Man, the offense at Jack Britt it's ridiculous. I think Gavin Stokes, he's been coined as the most underrated quarterback in North Carolina tonight. So that's interesting. But I mean, honestly, he's been proving his case. I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns tonight. Charleston Southern commit Javante Brooks caught 2 of those passes. The offense is just unstoppable. I was surprised by the blowout. I had them winning. But I was very surprised by the blowout just because of the fact that it's Cape Fear, and I just can't count out Cape Fear. You know, that's back-to-back losses, but at the end of the day, Coach Jake Thomas, he has a great program over there. They have the guys, they have the pieces. They just everything needs to gel together, and they're missing their running back. So Jack Britt exploited that. They exploited the lack of seniority in their secondary. So. Yeah, I mean, Cape Fear did the best they could, but in the second half, they just couldn't get down the field.
Big picture for Jack Britt. So the Mid-South 7A, 8A, it's been kind of a little bit different with how we thought it would be. Richmond has a couple of losses against good teams, granted. Pinecrest, they had that big loss to Cleveland to start the year. James, I'm starting to think that Jack Britt might be the favorite in this conference. Are you kind of on the same wavelength as me?
Yes, my preseason prediction was Jack Britt winning the conference, and I am sticking with it. I really do like Pinecrest. Like you said, they lost a good game to a really good team, but honestly, Richmond as well. I think they're all really similar in stature as far as just size and the explosiveness on their offense and ball hawks on defense, but I really like Jack Britt to win this conference.
Gotcha. Well, James, I appreciate it. We got some guests coming on here. We're gonna have to have it go here, but James, really appreciate it, and tell people where they can go find your game coverage tonight.
You can look at the Fayetteville Observer. You can look on all platforms with 910 Preps, and we'll be at Jack Britt Terry Sanford next week.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, that's gonna be incredible. Well, we thank you again for joining us this week. Hope to talk to you next week after that big one.
All right, thank you, fellas. Have a good one.
From Fayetteville all the way over to a big matchup tonight between West Iredell and Ford. Last year, when these two teams squared off, it was a thriller that came all the way down to the end. It was back and forth and chaotic. Tonight, that was not the case as West Iredell picks up the big 37-2 victory. Their head coach, Sean Fitzgerald, joins us. Coach, for your guys to really put their mark on this game and leave no doubt, what did you see out of your guys and what helped lead you to that 37-2 victory?
Well, Coach, I was really proud of our guys' resilience. Their halftime score was 12-2. And, we went in at halftime, made a couple of adjustments here and there. And we were able to kind of pour it on. Defense scored as well. Our defensive unit has been fantastic this year, only giving up 8 points in 3 games. And that's really, really helped us. It's given us extra opportunities offensively. We've stolen some possessions like that. And so, I would say that definitely had the biggest impact on the game is just how well we played defensively and scoring when we had opportunities as well.
Hey, so the big reason why I want to get you on here is your sophomore quarterback, Jabraylon Patterson. He made a pretty nice impact last year and done some good things so far this year. 6'4" quarterback. Kind of tell the world here about your quarterback and kind of the attention he's receiving.
Yeah, so incredibly talented kid. He's worked so hard this offseason. He had the opportunity to take the starting role this year, and he really has worked his tail off in the weight room. He's put on some good weight. He's worked hard in the off season. He goes and sees a quarterback trainer every once in a while just to put in additional work. He's done a great job studying the offense and working really hard. Tonight he had 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. So that was another big night for him. And I'll tell you what, guys, he's a humble kid, and he runs the offense and doesn't ask me to throw it a million times because that's what he loves to do. He runs the offense, and we run it through our big tailback Mario Spence, and our guys up front do a good job week in and week out making sure that the offense runs.
How do you take this strong start to the season? As you mentioned, your defense has played really well. Now that you're starting to get into the thick of conference play, North Lincoln next week, how do you take this early momentum and use it as a good thing that can propel your team over the next couple of weeks, Coach?
Yeah, so it's been a while since we've been in this position. This was actually my first conference game we've won as a head football coach here at West Iredell. So, just checking off boxes, really spending time at practice, not getting bored. We've seen an odd front the entire time this season. Both of our scrimmages were odd front. Eastburg, North Iredell, and Ford were odd front. I've known Coach Henson for a really long time, the head football coach there at North Lincoln. And so, we're going to get odd front again next week. And so, just making sure that, we're not getting bored and making sure that we're keeping things fresh at practice. And, sometimes when you're going through and you see the same defense every single week, and, on top of it, we've seen 3 wing T teams, week in and week out. And so, making sure that we don't take it for granted by any stretch of the imagination, and just take it one week at a time.
Well, I'm sure it sounds good to hear. Sean Fitzgerald, the head coach of the 3-0 West Iredell Warriors. Thanks, Coach, for joining us, and congratulations on the win tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah. As we continue on here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC, we do remind you, if you want to see some of the top highlights from the eastern part of the state, you can tune into WRL TV's Football Friday now with Chris Lee. He has highlights from that big Garner Middle Creek game that we just talked to Clay Best about. And there are some big highlights from Cardinal Gibbons' big win over Southern Durham. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Tyler Clark will join us to fill us in on how the Crusaders pulled away with such a big victory. You are watching the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth. Teens bounce back fast, and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.
Welcome back to the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Before the break, we mentioned Cardinal Gibbons picking up a big win over Southern Durham tonight. Tyler Clark was there bringing it all in. The Crusaders, Tyler, they ran away with a big win, and they are just off to a hot start. How were they able to pull away from the Spartans in this one tonight?
Man, it was a ground attack tonight. We had Noah Terry going for over 100 yards, Gannon Jones, doing what Gannon Jones does. And they had some other running backs on the side, including a freshman, Truth Caesar, also getting a touchdown tonight. So they just really ran the ball and had their way with Southern tonight.
Hey, so Tyler's a Durham guy. He played at Jordan. He's now playing for NC Central. I'm really curious about your thoughts on Southern Durham. It's been kind of a chaotic start for them. They've had back and forth quarterbacks starting. There's been some stuff going on. What was your general impression of them tonight, and what do you think? what were you kind of surprised by them seeing them in person?
Southern really, they just kind of try and beat you with athletes, and that works against in some ways, but like they did against Wake Forest. But against a well-coached Cardinal Gibbons team, that's just not going to work out.
Your impressions on Gibbons, and what were some things from tonight that you think that they might need to sharpen up? Because this is the team that we're looking at right now, and in the 7A classification, we think they can contend. What are some things from tonight you think they need to tighten up before they get to the playoffs?
I would say their pass rush and their offensive line play. They had a few penalties here and there, stopping some big plays on offense. So their offensive line needs to calm down a little bit on the holding.
It's always so interesting when Gibbons has this crazy non-conference schedule. They're going to go into the Cap 8. Do you think that they're going to struggle at all in conference play, or do you think they're just going to be kind of coasting until they? Well, they're not in the Cap 8 anymore. Look at me. I'm still getting confused. So they're this new conference, the Triangle 6A, 7A. I don't know if you know those other teams in there, but it's Middle Creek. It's it's Felton Grove, which isn't playing yet.
Cary.
Yeah. We're still learning it.
Holly Springs.
Do you see Gibbons kind of coasting through this conference, Tyler?
Yeah, I do. Gibbons is always going to be a well-coached team. They're always going to have some guys. They've got some guys in the back end who really shocked me today. You had Xavier and you had Braylon. And then you got one of the best quarterbacks in the area, Gannon. So I don't see them. I see them improving from here.
Well, Tyler, we appreciate you for bringing this one in. Again, he'll have more from this big win. Cardinal Gibbons all over Southern Durham tonight. Thanks, Tyler.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
We continue on here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Let's take a look at the 252 area scoreboard from tonight. New Bern picking up a big win over West Craven, 48-27. Southern Nash, we had mentioned this earlier, a 44-42 win over James Keenan. Laney defeating J.H. Rose 33-18. Farmville Central sneaks past Conley. That's a Conley team that had a big win last week over Northeastern. That was 29-26. Yeah. Northeastern, they do bounce back, though, 48-7 over Holmes, Rocky Mount, all over Nash Central. The Griffons continue to roll 42-6 the final there. Green Central defeating Wilson Prep 30-8. Aiden Grifton defeating Fike 37-22. Hunt defeating Martin County 37-26. South Central over North Pitt 25-16. Kip Pride, they continue to make some noise in the 1A ranks, 28-14 winners over Gates County. Kinston left no doubt in a victory over North Lenoir. Getting back to that New Bern West Craven game, we bring in Leica Abibi here to the show. Leica, we kind of talked about this. This New Bern team, not only tonight but over the course of the season, we're going to learn a lot about this team.
You got that right, fellas. They got off to a fantastic start tonight against West Craven, scoring touchdowns on their first 3 drives. But the first quarter was wild. Like West Craven also had 2 kickoff return touchdowns in the first 9 minutes of the game. So things went back and forth, but it was really the Bears defense getting timely stops in the second half and Carvin Magwood in the run game getting 4 rushing touchdowns and was pivotal in New Bern's victory tonight.
I do want to get into what happened at the end of this game. There was some kind of a thing going on post game. Kind of describe what happened there and what was your impression of the ending of the game?
From my vantage point, it seemed that the coaches were not going to be cordial in the handshake line, and it kind of tension kind of boiled over, and players also got involved. Apparently, I don't want to speculate on what happened, but I was told punches were thrown afterwards, and both teams were escorted to their respective places. So the West Craven players went back to their locker room, and the New Bern players went straight to the buses. Could not really get a word with anyone after the contest was over, and it kind of marred what was a very competitive game for a while until the Bears ultimately pulled away in the second half.
This kind of reminds me of the thing we talked about this week when there's an increase of ejections going on statewide. It has not been a very good situation right now. Just general takeaways from both New Bern and West Craven. How's the game tonight kind of sway your opinion of them? Do you think the same as you did coming in, or do you think differently of either team?
I will say both teams definitely had to clean up the penalties. There was way too many of those throughout the night. Ultimately, if New Bern can limit their turnovers, I think they could be competitive in their next 2 weeks. But I will say those are two of the very best teams around in Cleveland and Huff that they're playing in the next couple weeks. So they'll have to limit the penalties, and they did a good job limiting the turnovers and also forcing a couple on the other end. West Craven, if I'm correct, they should be 4A East.
Yep.
I think DJ Davis could have a huge impact in the 4A East. He does a little bit of everything. He's probably going to be safety at the next level, but he's of course starting quarterback as well for the Eagles. They got big contributions from Xavier Cuthbertson in the return game and the run game, and even passing game too. Like, he does a little bit of everything on the outside for the Eagles. So they have a lot of athletes and will make a lot of noise in 4A East. There are a lot of good things to take away for sure for both sides.
Well, it was a big win for the New Bern Bears tonight over West Craven. Leica's going to have more from that one up on High School OT tonight. Thanks, Leica.
Pleasure, guys, always.
We roll on here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Let's take a look at the Talk It Out NC scoreboard and the 704 area code. Clover from South Carolina picking up a 2-point win over Palisades tonight. That was 21-19, the final. South Point, they've had a really hot start to the season. 38-6 winners over TC. Robertson, Lake Norman picks up a big win over West Cabarrus. Irmo from South Carolina defeats Butler. Forest Hills defeating Community School of Davidson. Kings Mountain over Bandy's. Oak Grove over Salisbury. Sun Valley 41-0 against Parkwood. That Oak Grove score was 48-0, but none of it is in comparison to the Shelby final score tonight, the highest scoring total in the state, and by far the biggest point differential, 90-0 over Highland Tech in their conference opener. I think that was one of the downsides, I think, to realignment, is that that's not a matchup that I think Shelby or Highland Tech would have preferred in the non-conference. 90-0 there. East Lincoln over Newton Conover tonight. Chambers shuts out Harding, and Statesville picks up a narrow 24-21 win over Hopewell. As we wrap things up here on this week's edition of the High School OT postgame show, Joel, as you started to download and digest some of the games across the state, what sticks out to you?
What sticks out to me is I can't figure out 6A at all. 6A is just it's a cluster right now. Yeah. We have no idea what's going on. 8A has been impressive. Hogger's emergence right now is a real storyline, because we came in thinking Millbrook Rollsville, and now I'm kind of thinking maybe Hoggard first. So yeah, I can see that. Very impressive what they've done, and of course there's going to be quite a bit of a competition coming from the other side of that bracket in 8A West.
I don't know who's going to make it out of the 8A West.
Yeah, I mean, it could
be one of like 6 teams.
Yeah, and you wouldn't surprise me either way. So lots to talk about as we keep going here, and we'll have more on High School OT Press Box tomorrow night.
Yep, High School OT Press Box on Sunday night, actually. We will have the breakdown of all of those games. Again, you've watched the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. We thank you for joining us this week. Before we go, one more message from our friends at Talk It Out NC.
Raising kids is a roller coaster. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, but most times you wonder how your kid turned out so well. That's how. You did the hard work, made the right decisions, like talking about alcohol before it could be a problem. Go to talkitoutnc.org. Get resources on how to talk about underage drinking. So Mom, Dad, keep up the good work. It's worth it. Talk early. Talk often. Talk It Out NC.